Views expressed by Camaplan podcast guests may not reflect those of Camaplan. Camaplan does not guarantee the accuracy of information provided by guests, nor does it endorse or recommend any individual or organization. Camaplan is not an investment advisor, CPA, realtor, or attorney. You are encouraged to conduct your own due diligence before making investment choices. For any tax, legal, accounting, investment, or other questions, please consult a specialist. Hi, I'm Michael Duncan, and welcome back to The Road to Financial Freedom. This podcast is brought to you by Camaplan, a self-directed IRA administrator focused on educating investors on how to grow retirement savings faster through alternative investments. In each episode, we're going to take an in-depth look at the many roads taken to financial freedom and how they differ for each of our guests. Our goal is to help the listeners learn how they can achieve their own financial freedom through the experience and stories of experts that have done just that. Today's guest is a featured TEDx speaker, author, and the #1 real estate coach and investor specializing in the tax lien and tax deed investment strategy for the entire United States. She is the founder of the Tax Deed Genius Real Estate Investor Training Program and Tax Deed Genius nationwide app, connecting to over 8,000 auctions across America. In her training program, she coaches new and experienced real estate entrepreneurs on how to successfully buy properties virtually from the comfort of their homes while earning major profits. I'm very excited to welcome Jackie Jackson to the show today. Jackie, how are you doing?
I am doing so well, Michael. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to meet you, and I'm really excited to, be able to take this time and learn more about you and what you do.
Yes, I'm so excited to share with your community. I was like counting down like the days and the hours that we would like go live. So excited.
I I truly appreciate that. Because of my awful memory, I typically let my calendar do the counting down. The constant reminders are extremely helpful, but I was excited nonetheless. I just, didn't know when it was going to happen until my calendar reminded me. Uh, but regardless, I would love to start out by just learning a little bit more about what you do. Obviously, I gave you an intro, and that's a lot of words. So for people like me that don't necessarily know what all of those words mean, could you just explain to me what it is that you do?
Definitely. Well, what I'm most passionate about what I do is I help people genuinely, encouraging them as well as supporting them in their journey for building wealth. And I chose the vehicle of a real estate to facilitate that conversation. But we can all build wealth in a variety of different ways. Real estate is just how I have chosen to share based on my experience that I have had in investing. I started out originally as a banker back in the day.
Okay.
As I as I climbed the corporate ladder, I started out in banker as a VP branch manager, and I did that for a couple of years. And while in banking, I would manage accounts for real estate investors, and they would come in and do their wire transfers, and they come in and get their like cashier's checks and all these different services that they needed at the branch level. And I was like, what are you guys doing? They're making like I'm cashing, these really huge checks and doing all these things for them. And it piqued my interest and curiosity to ask them one day, what are you doing? And someone was like, well, we invest in real estate. And I was like, oh, what? Because at that time, what my experience with real estate was the traditional way. You came in, you applied for a mortgage, you filled out all of this information, you waited for underwriting to tell you yes or no and tell you how much you could qualify for, and then you went out and purchased a property based on living in it. Like that was your intent. You were supposed to live in it, right? So it was foreign to me that people were buying real estate and they had no plans of ever living in it, but plans on actually being successful and profitable in that process. And I was just hooked on just the concept of it. And then I explored it from that point forward. And here I am today as a coach and an investor myself.
So I'd like to say I relate to that very heavily. Not from the point of becoming a coach and a mentor, because I'm not doing that. But, a little peek behind the curtain. I'm 27 years old. And this is my first job in anything close to, the financial sector, if you can even call it that. And throughout this podcast, I've been able to bring in people that are experienced and have tons of, stories and life experiences based around this investing and stuff. And it is incredible to hear about. It's incredible. My story, we'll see how it ends up, but it sounds a lot like yours, where it's like you're seeing these people bring in these big checks, talking about these large amounts of money, and just treating certain parts of, real estate, or whether it's self-storage or whatever it is, in a way that you're very different, in a way that's very different than what you're used to. So I can really relate truly to the feeling that you probably felt when you were like, what the heck are these guys doing, bringing in these checks for like hundreds of thousands of dollars? And it's just, it's a very eye-opening experience for sure.
Yes, I mean, that was my first introduction to that. Investing didn't have to look any specific way, right? So
Yep.
there's a variety of different implementations of investing. And when I realized that there were so many different customized options, it was liberating that you didn't have to do it just one way. And I'll tell you a very interesting story. So when I first started out in real estate, although I had investors around me and I was providing them with some really valuable services, I didn't ask enough questions.
Yeah.
So my first investment as an investor, my first attempt to do it alone, is it rounded up to be a negative of $120,000. So my first deal as a branch manager, because I thought I knew what I knew. And I did know a lot, right? I was educated in the basics and the systems and just traditional way, but I was applying a strategy to another concept that didn't match. It was like trying to fit a square into a round hole, right? So I was applying traditional concepts to a creative strategy and it didn't work. And I wound up having the most expensive PhD I have ever accomplished on what not to do. So $120,000 negative deficit in debt, Michael, was my first deal. So that was my first experience at real estate. And then I was like, wait a minute, what happened to all the other investors that was coming in and cashing these big checks and making all of these deposits and things? That's not the type of experience
They all lied to you. They were actually just sports bettors. Every single one of them. You had to find out the hard way.
So I literally had to humble myself, Michael, right? And stop being a know-it-all, if you will, and was like, wait a minute, if these individuals are so profitable in what they're doing, obviously they know something that I do not know. And I just didn't know what I didn't know.
Yep.
I knew enough to get myself into trouble, which is exactly what I did. But I did not know how they were doing it so that they can be successful. I didn't know about transaction engineering or creative real estate or, structuring and putting deals together. I just didn't know those things. So I actually had to slow down. And, not by choice. I was literally forced.
I was going to say, I haven't known you very long, but I feel like slowing down is not typically your speed.
Well, six-figure debt over your head, wow, as a single mom will definitely be something to be like a cog in your wheel, right?
Probably.
So, I had to slow down and learn some new vocabulary, new concepts, and new processes. And those concepts that I learned for creative real estate was how to purchase property without using my personal credit, without having to involve a bank, right? How to structure deals, how to do all of these no money down strategies. And those strategies are what was used to get me out of debt. So I got myself into debt using traditional strategies, and then I got myself out of debt by implementing creative real estate investing strategies to including my self-directed IRA, opening up all these different accounts, partnering with other investors, and doing different things like that. Because Lord knows at the time I didn't have any money, so I had to figure out and learn how to use other people's money and like partner and joint venture with individuals that had funds available to invest, but they didn't necessarily have the time or the desire or the interest to be boots on the ground. And all I had was time. That's all I had.
You absolutely didn't have the money, so you might as well have had the time.
That's all I had was time.
But you did do my job a little bit for me there by bringing up the self-directed IRA, because something that you mentioned, which was, investing didn't have to look a certain way. Obviously, it's, it's a little bit of the company line, but I wouldn't say it if I didn't, believe it and if it didn't relate. But I, I think you just touched on something that's so important that, growing up, and obviously, like, you were a banker. I mean, you saw firsthand that investing is typically looked at in a certain lens, in a certain way, and the way people make money, whether it be through just general investing or their retirement accounts, is always in a certain space. It's always looked at in a certain space. It's, stocks. It's stuff like that, like your IRAs, your 401ks, your traditionals. But the reality is that there's so many markets out there and so many different things you can do with those IRAs or your money in alternative investing. And I think you touched on it. I wasn't going to even bring it up, but you touched on it, and it felt it really hit home really hard, because I think that's such an important thing to be aware of. And it sounds like, because you had no money, you had to get creative. You had to learn how all that was working.
Very, very true. And in the investment world, we talk a lot about diversity. You'll hear that word tossed around, and it means different things to different people. But diversity really, truly means having different types of investing vehicles, and then you can combine them to create a holistic plan, right?
Yeah.
So, from a banker perspective, diversity for me was like having, large, big caps, in stocks, and then you had small stocks, but they all included the same thing. They were still in the same category, right? So whether it was a mutual fund, or a money market account, different things like that, or a certificate of deposit, like I knew all about those things, right?
Yeah.
So they were all like savings vehicles, like 401ks and all those things were savings vehicles, but none of it included real estate or buying businesses or investing in precious metals or doing any of those things. Like it didn't.
You could go on for days of all.
Yeah.
That doesn't include.
It didn't include any of those things. So looking back, I was like, I really was using words and terms that I didn't truly understand,
Yeah.
and I thought I understood it, and I did not. But when I sought the counsel of those that were more experienced than I did, and I joined my like local real estate investing association, and I really immersed myself in that group, so much so that I became a board member. I was 2-time board member of that real estate investing group. And that's really where I think people say like they cut their teeth, if you will,
Yeah.
because now I'm speaking the same language and I'm understanding what I am saying, and I'm listening to people who are more successful than I was and following their path of success, like Hansel and Gretel, like picking up their breadcrumbs every single time like they said something. I would just jot that down. I'm like, oh wow, how do they deal together? What do you mean? They did wrap mortgages. What is a wrap mortgage? Like, what does this do? Like, what is subject to? What is wholesaling? All of these things. And then it led me to the strategy that I currently specialize in now, which is purchasing real estate for their delinquent real estate taxes all across the United States. So that is one of my loves. Why? Because all the other strategies that I was doing in real estate required like extensive marketing budgets.
Yeah.
And I would have to constantly be filling my pipeline with opportunities. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you literally had to be a marketing machine. And as a full-time mom, and I really think I was a full-time student at that time too, and then full-time employment, it was just a lot of energy.
That's 3 full-time jobs.
Yeah, that's
real estate stuff for those keeping track at home.
Yes, exactly. It was a lot going on. So I was like, oh man, I need to find a better way, more efficient. And when I learned that the government provides the list of opportunities, these properties, I was hooked. I was like, okay, great. So all I have to do is just get the list, understand, decode what I'm looking at, and then do my due diligence and just pick one. I was like, oh, too easy.
Yeah.
I could do that all day.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say, like, I think I have to commend you for knowing that you didn't know, knowing to ask questions and knowing to, be Hansel and Gretel and follow those breadcrumbs, which, by the way, first time I think on this podcast that a children's story like Hansel and Gretel has been mentioned. So kudos to you for that. Very good example though. But yeah, like not everyone has the ability to do that. And especially in a situation like you're in where, this is in a way your 4th full-time job. You've got a lot riding on it. Obviously, you're in debt, 120 grand in the hole. Not everyone has the lack of ego or the ability to push their ego aside to say, I need to figure out what I don't know so I can figure this out, So I commend you for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And looking back at that particular phase of my life, I was a sponge. And nothing was off limits. I gave myself permission to just learn, just to sit at people's kitchen table, to go to the networking meetings, to try and to
Yeah.
have those conversations with people without feeling like I had to be smart. Because sometimes people don't ask questions because they're afraid that someone is going to think that they're not smart. And it's okay to not be smart. It's okay. Like, it doesn't mean overall you're not intelligent, but if you have limitations around a specific subject, it's okay to say, you know what? That's something new to me. I've never heard that before. Can you share what that means? What does that mean? And it's okay. Like, the first time I heard about self-directed IRA, I knew all about 401ks, right? Because we talked about 401ks all the time at my employment, at my job as a vice president. I totally got that. And a matter of fact, at the financial institution that I worked at, they had traditional IRAs, they had Roth IRAs, and they offered it to their customers. So they were advocates for us having conversations with people who left their employment and had their 401ks just kind of sitting out there. They wanted us to ask questions, qualifying questions, to see if they would roll over and have their funds be deposited here, so inside the bank. And that was cool. So I knew about that. What I did not know was that there was something called self-directed, and self-directed is a whole nother level of freedom that I was not privy to understanding. So I had to ask a lot of questions on what that meant. And then when I got clarity, I was like, wait a minute. So you're telling me I still get all the benefits, right? All of the benefits of what's written in the IRS tax codes for traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs, all of those different things. But yet I get to be in control and make the decision of how that money is dispersed and what I use it for. Like,
I even like a scam, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Like, I even get to be the bank, and I was clear on what it was to collect.
Oh, I bet. I mean, when I first applied for the job here, I will be completely honest, that Camel plan, I had no clue what a self-directed IRA was. And meanwhile, I'm trying to Google it. I'm going in for this interview to, record these podcasts. I'm Googling. I'm like, what the first thing that came up specifically was like investing in a horse farm. And I was like, what on earth am I walking into right now? Like, I've never heard of this thing. And Google is telling me something about horses. So I'm like texting my buddies, trying to figure out if they know anything. And of course, we don't. We're not taught that in school. And as soon as I get here, I'm like, why doesn't everybody do this? Like, why isn't this a thing that everyone knows about, that they're all doing? Like, it seems very, I don't know, simple in a lot of ways.
Very simple yet complex, right?
Yes. Oh, extremely.
Because you're not taught it, and no one's having that conversation, and you don't know what you don't know. So people tend to gravitate to what they're familiar with.
Yep.
So the process continues to perpetuate itself for a lack of better words, because you just don't know what you don't know. And I'm just glad that I had the opportunity to be introduced to a different way and a different lens of looking at finances. And I'm an advocate for self-directed IRAs and an advocate for Camel Plan and custodians, because you really do give people the opportunity to truly create wealth in a rapid warp speed vehicle, So there's many different ways you can get to your destination. You can take a bus, you can take a bicycle, a train.
I can't ride a bike, so
that
sounds out for me.
A jet, a car, all these different ways. And a self-directed IRA, what Camel Plan offers is like, a rocket. That's what I call it, like a spaceship, where you can launch yourself into a whole different sphere, a whole different place that is the whole new universe, if you will. So that's the power of what a self-directed IRA can do.
I'll tell you what, my bosses are going to love this episode because you're plugging everything. I don't need to do anything. I don't even know why I'm here. This is great, but you're making my life a lot easier. But let's move back to tax deed, tax lien investment opportunities across the United States. That's what you specialize in. And specifically, you have an app for it. You've talked on TEDx about it. Like, this is clearly your expertise, and I want to know everything there is to know. Why did you've talked a little bit about why you got into it, but why have you stayed in it? Why do you think this is the way to go when it comes to this, this area of investment?
Well, the reason why I stay in this niche is because there's always going to be a lead source.
Very true.
There's always going to be a lead source, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. So every real estate property, every real property, every tangible property across the United States, there's 3,141 counties and county equivalents, and we all know there's 50 individual states, and every state has a law, has statutes that are written, language that's written in their legislature that says if a property owner, real estate property owner, does not pay their real estate taxes, then this thing is going to happen, right? The counties have an authority to do a thing, right? And that thing is collections. So they have the authority to collect all the way up to either placing a lien on the property and or selling the property to the public, to the highest bidder, so that they can collect real estate taxes. And why is this important for people to know? Whether you invest in tax liens or tax deeds or not, if you own real estate property, you must know the severity of what the government can do if you become delinquent on your real estate taxes. They can literally sell your property to be able to collect those taxes. And then you would say, well, why is it so stringent? Like, why are they pursuing this collection act? And why is it so important to the government? Well, real estate taxes, unbeknownst to a lot of people, actually takes care of local amenities in the community. So that's our roads, that's our schools, that's our libraries, that's our police department, our emergency services. It actually benefits us all. So real estate taxes is what the counties use to fund all of the community amenities, our parks and recreational services, all of those things that we all love and enjoy in our community. So when a property owner is delinquent, it really impacts. It impacts not only everybody in the community, but it also, and more importantly, impacts the county, because they don't have the budget to take care of all of those resources, because the people are still there. We're still living there in these communities, right? But they don't have the budget. You know, our government is not a profit generating type of entity, right? They collect taxes in order to provide services, right? Maybe people say, oh, the government is like a business. They're not. They're not a business. You know, they're facilitating of resources that they get from the public, and then they in turn, quote unquote, turn around and provide the community, its citizens, with services. So when a real estate owner, property owner, is delinquent, it's a really, really big deal. And that's the reason why there's laws written to enforce the collections of those real estate taxes, because the county really, really needs it for the vital services that everyone knows and enjoys. Whether you own real estate or you don't, we all participate and take advantage of the services that those taxes provide.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, if you've ever seen Parks and Rec, we know that, Leslie Knope does not have a lot of money to work with. And unfortunately, as soon as you mentioned the Parks Department, that's where my mind went, and that's where it stayed. But I just, it's a great show. Have you ever seen Parks and Recreation?
Parks and Rec, well, I've seen it from the different, are you talking about locally, like where I live?
It's a TV show. It's a TV show. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, I'm very pop culture-y, so hopefully there's at least one listener out there that has watched it and understood my reference, because that'll make me feel better. Feel free to send me an email and tell me that you got my reference. But regardless, it's a sitcom based around a Parks and Recreation department in a local government in a small town in Indiana.
How interesting is that? That is actually pretty funny show.
Oh, one of the best shows I've ever watched. Just from the guys that like created The Office and all that. It was on NBC for like 9 seasons. Chris Pratt got his his real start on that. Yeah, great cast. Regardless, that's not what this podcast is about.
But it's relevant nonetheless, because all of technically like the salaries
Yeah.
of the individuals that like work in that department, plus the maintenance, their equipment, all of those things are wrapped up in some way, shape, or form in real estate taxes. So it's relevant. So thank you so much for bringing it up, because now I'm gonna go look it up. I'm gonna go find it now and watch it.
You'll get sucked in. If you're a TV person, you will get sucked in. Hashtag not a sponsor, but it's on Peacock.
Will do.
Yes. So yeah, obviously the liens, the thing that started that conversation was the fact that there is always a lead source. These leads are always being generated. They're always happening. And one of the biggest things you mentioned beforehand was, in a way, that takes a lot of the load off you in terms of, you don't have to constantly be looking for these opportunities. You're not a marketing machine. Does that ever limit upside, or like, I guess, what are the cons that go along with these pros of choosing this niche compared to others?
Oh, I get asked that question all the time. So I guess the cons, I'll do the pros and the cons, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So let's start with the worst things first.
Perfect.
Because people are like, oh, let me start with the best thing. I'm like, no, I'm gonna start with the worst things first. So the challenge with the strategy is like, you don't get to choose the property type, right? So every property is susceptible to delinquency. So if you are an investor and you say, okay, I only want to invest in commercial real estate properties, right? And then now you're waiting to see if a commercial real estate property that fits your buying criteria has become delinquent, right? So that may be a lead source for you that would be considered too slow, because you can easily download a list of commercial real estate properties that do fit your buying criteria and just go market to all of those owners, right? Just direct whether they have delinquency or not, because you're marketing for possibly like other motivation to see if they're interested in entertaining conversation about receiving an offer, or something like that. So to me, I think that would be probably the biggest limitation, is that it's kind of random, if you will, right? So when you get the list of properties, it could include industrial properties, commercial properties, vacant land, residential vacant land, commercial vacant land, single family homes, duplexes, all kinds of farmland. It don't even matter, right? It's just a list of like who is delinquent. So if you're looking for something specific, maybe you have this list and it's a great list of properties, but the properties that you're looking for to invest in may not be listed there. But the cool thing about the real estate taxes and the list is that the list replenishes itself. So either it could be weekly, it could be, 2 times per month, or once a month, or quarterly, or annually, or semi-annually, depending on the inventory for that county and the frequently that they publish their list. There's always going to be another list. And then again, there's 3,141 counties and county equivalents. So there really isn't a shortage of opportunity. It's just basically, are you finding what you're looking for based on your buying criteria? And that's the first thing that I coach and have people outline, is a business plan, right? So, whether you're buying single family homes or not, or you choose to do something else, you must have like a vision. I want to buy 20 single family homes, in the next 24 months, right? And then you have to answer like your 5 W's and your how. And could just have like, whether it's on a napkin, or a piece of paper, you just got to have some kind of like game plan. And I believe that investing in tax liens and tax deeds can help you facilitate that. It's like another tool on your toolkit, on your tool belt, and then while implementing other strategies simultaneously. Yep.
So before, we're reaching kind of the end, but I do want to ask about your training program. Why did you get into that, and what do you think you offer that isn't available in other training programs?
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. Tax D Genius is the name of the program, and I created it with the name genius, because I really do make you like a genius. Like you're literally a lethal weapon that could be dropped off in any town, any county, USA, and you'll know exactly what to do, where to find these delinquent real estate property lists and find these opportunities with your county, wherever you are, and you'll know what to do to be profitable. Yeah. So the genius behind it is you'll know where to find, you'll know how to analyze and do your due diligence. You'll know how to buy and protect yourself, and you'll know how to create a system to repeat your success, no matter where you are. And you can do it virtually from the comfort of your home, right? Or wherever you are. You don't have to be in that state. You're not limited to investing only in your local state or your local county. You can actually cross county lines, right? And cross state lines and invest in the West Coast or the Midwest or, the Southeastern region or maybe the Northeastern region, whatever it is that that you would like to do that fits your goal and your business plan.
Incredible. And I'm assuming teaching has to be a passion of yours to some degree, or else why would you even start that kind of thing?
It is. And I did not know that teaching was a gift that I had. I've always been an orator. I've always been someone that spoke too much. Like that was, like you get A's and B's in school, and then you got that little comment from your teacher and says that, Jackie talks too much,
I can relate. Yeah, I can relate.
Fly, So that's always been part of my personality and like who I was being in the world. So I never really thought of it as being a teacher, but what I was really good at was taking complex processes or complex ideas and making it so simple that anyone can understand. So that's what I ended up being good at. And when I realized that and owned it, I created a course to explain this process, because the truth is you can Google a lot of things, right? You can do a lot of research and you can find things on public records and things like that. You can find a lot of tools and a lot of resources. The challenge is, although you may have all of the pieces, in order for you to create a plan and a course of action, you have to know how to arrange those pieces. Yeah. And you have to know what each of those pieces mean, and you have to be able to connect them. And that's where I come in. So when people come to me, they've already taken courses, they've already, possibly invested before, or maybe they've never invested, but they have heard something about something, and they're like, they have more questions, than they actually have answers. And that's the reason, is that they're confused, because they read all from these different sources, but they don't really know how to navigate or how to actually put it together so that it actually makes sense. And that's what my program does for people. It make it make sense. That's what the pop culture say. Make it make sense. Isn't that?
Oh, I like that. Yeah, no, you're spot on. And they get the benefit of all of your experience, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think the ugly can be just as helpful as the good a lot of the time. They don't have to get into $120,000 worth of debt to get started like you did. So
no, I normally tell my students, please borrow my confidence, right? Yeah. Borrow my confidence, borrow my experience, right? And just borrow my knowledge, and you can borrow my money too for a fee. You can do all of the above. But the point here is that they don't have to have it all, Yeah. They can utilize the resources that's already there so that they can have a higher probability of being success faster and with less risk.
Incredible. Well, before I let you plug yourself and ask you to tell the listeners where they can find you, I have one final question I ask everyone that comes on, and I would just like to know what financial freedom means to you.
Wow. So financial freedom to me means being abundantly supplied. I'm a Christian kind of girl. My book that I wrote, here it is. I'm going to get us a copy real quick. So here's a quick plug. You can love God and drive a Bentley. And the reason why I wrote this book is because it's based off of a prosperity guide, based off of biblical principles. And not many people have made that connection that they're supposed to be abundantly supplied. There should not be any struggles in their lives. And we do find people that struggle for a variety of reasons, but most of the times it's because they don't know what they don't know. So this book gives permission, not only on a spiritual level, but a physical and emotional level, that it's okay for you to want and to have the desire and to go after your wealth in a powerful, intentional way. So that's what it means to me, is to be abundantly supplied. And that could have a definition for many different people. So some people want to be millionaires. Some people want to be billionaires. Some people just want to be thousandaires. Like, can I just end the month?
Yeah.
More money than I started with? And that's okay, right?
Yeah,
that's definitely okay.
No, well said. I like that. Abundantly supplied. I like that a lot. I'm going to start using that. So thank you for that. And thank you for coming on. And please tell the listeners where they can find you, how they can get in contact with you, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. So all over social media, I am the Jackie Jackson. I'm the only one that announces themselves on the internet in third person. So the Jackie Jackson, and my website is thejackyjackson.com. Please follow me on Instagram, subscribe to my YouTube channel, have a wealth of resources there as well. And if you have any questions about working with me, partner with me, if you are a investor that has monies and you want to earn high rates of returns with a secured asset, you can always email us at info@thejackyjackson.com. We'll definitely have that conversation with you about joint venturing.
There we go. And all that information will be in the link will be linked in the description of this episode. So Jackie, thank you so much for coming on. You're awesome. I had a pleasure talking to you and getting to know you and learning from you. And I recommend that everyone is able to, follow up with her and hopefully do the same. So thank you so much for coming on, Jackie.
Thank you as well, Michael. You are awesome.
Well, thank you. And as always, thanks for listening to The Road to Financial Freedom. If you enjoyed this show, please support the podcast by remembering to rate, review, and subscribe. You can also keep up to date with us on Facebook or Instagram at Road to Financial Freedom Podcast. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. If you like what you're hearing on The Road to Financial Freedom and want to learn more about self-directed IRAs and 401ks, click the link in the description to download a free toolkit with everything you need to get started.